Coalition for Democracy and Lasting Peace. In 2022, she was appointed by the United Nations Secretary General to the leadership panel of the Internet Governance Forum. She's a professor of practice at the Institute of Global Politics at Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs, where she leads a project related to artificial intelligence and democracy. Her most recent book, How to Stand Up to a Dictator, has been translated into more than 20 languages. Please, Maria, thank you.
Oh, wow. So I'm going to pretend to be taller than I am. I'll be standing in front of you. Thank you. It's so wonderful to be here. My gosh. This is daunting here, by the way. It feels like a momentous time. This is a sacred space. And we're kicking off the Jubilee at this time of grace, of reflection, and of recommitment to the values that bind us together as a global community. This comes just in time as we are living through a profound transformation of our world. The last time something like what we are living through today happened, when new technology enabled the rise of fascism, was 80 years ago. That was also roughly around the last time a journalist was given the Nobel Peace Prize, except Karl von Ossietzky wasn't as lucky as I was. He languished in a Nazi prison and couldn't accept the award. For many years now, I've sounded the alarm. Just like in Hiroshima, an atom bomb exploded in our information ecosystem. In pursuit of power and money, technology enabled insidious manipulation at the cellular level of all of our democracies, of us, the people, the voters, micro-targeting fear, anger, and hate, seeding meta-narratives that destroyed trust. It created what the US Surgeon General called an epidemic of loneliness. It turned neighbor against neighbor, rewarding mob rule, rewarding the worst of who we are as people. Journalists were the first attacked. If you want power, tear down our credibility. This I know firsthand. I lived through it. My government targeted me with an average of 908 messages per hour. It functions like fertilizer, right? Hashtag arrest Maria Ressa trended on social media 2 years before I was actually arrested. What seems impossible becomes possible with repetition. I was arrested and I first posted bail, and I can't forget it because it was my government's gift to me on Valentine's Day in 2019. In a little over a year, my government filed 10 arrest warrants against me. I began to do a workflow for posting bail. I didn't know what was going to happen, but Rapper and I just tried to do what was right. And now, 8 years, almost a decade later, those 10 criminal charges are down to 2. Still 2. In order to be here in front of you today, I have to ask the Philippine Supreme Court for approval to travel, so you lose your rights. The sad part, I always joke that the Philippines has moved from hell to purgatory, but the sad part is that I see what has happened to us in the Philippines happening to far more developed countries around the world. The vote in America I call the Philippinization of American politics. This Jubilee comes at a time when the world is upside down, when what's right is wrong and what's wrong is right. I remember an old cartoon when I was growing up and learning about making decisions of conscience. Every major religion has that. The hardest battle to fight is inside yourself. Islam calls it the jihad. That's the battle inside yourself. But you remember this cartoon if you're my age, right? On your right, you have the devil telling you, egging you on, saying, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. And then on your left, there's this angel reminding you of empathy, of other people, of the golden rule, do the right thing, be kind. Well, telling you not to be selfish, to share, to fight your worst instincts. Devil and angel. What social media did was to kick the angel off your shoulder, grow the devil, and give it a direct line into your nervous system. Big tech transformed social media from a tool of connection into a weapon of mass behavioral engineering. These platforms are not neutral technologies, they're sophisticated systems designed to exploit our deepest psychological vulnerabilities. They monetize our outrage and hate, amplify our divisions, and systematically erode our capacity for nuanced thinking, our capacity for empathy. In 2018, an MIT study showed that lies spread 6 times faster on social media, and that was before Elon Musk bought Twitter. You tell a lie 1 million times, it becomes a fact. If you make people believe lies are facts, then you can control them. The business model of big tech pushes this. And I'll say the same 3 sentences I've said over and over, kind of feels like Cassandra and Sisyphus combined, but I'll say it again, because we're in here. Without facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these 3, we have no shared reality. We can't begin to solve any problem, let alone the existential ones like climate change. We can't have journalism, communications. We cannot have democracy. Surveillance capitalism, that business model, is built on a fundamental betrayal of human dignity, where data privacy has become a myth and AI and algorithms have cloned and manipulated us. 3 things. It created echo chambers that exacerbate existing biases, prioritize conflict over understanding, monetizing human attention, each of us, at the expense of social cohesion. This is not an accident. It is a deliberate design, an architecture for profit that brings in hundreds of billions of dollars a year to these companies. The hard part, what happens on social media doesn't stay on social media. There's only one of us, one you, living in both the physical world and the virtual world. Big tech hacked our biology, incited the worst of our emotions, fear, anger, and hate, because it changed the way we feel, it changes the way we look at the world, it changes the way we act, it changes the way we vote. Do we still have individual agency? We can see the trend. As of last year, VDEB said that 71% of the world is now under authoritarian rule. We are electing illiberal leaders democratically. After all, how can we have integrity of elections if we don't have integrity of facts? It's like we're standing on wood that's being eaten away by termites, and we just don't know when it will collapse. But something changed last year. In December, Romania became the first country around the world to void an election because of Russian manipulation of social media. They voided the election because of Kremlin interference. Now imagine if the UK in Brexit or the US in 2016 was brave enough to have taken those actions and prevented impunity. Electoral protests are happening all around the world, from Venezuela to Mozambique to Georgia, where large-scale protests began mid-April last year, but starting December, it was daily. And today is the 60th day when mass protests in Georgia are out in the streets. Journalists, activists, beaten and jailed. The journalists carried my book in the protests. The title, How to Stand Up to a Dictator. Investigative journalist Mazia Amaglobel today starts her 14th day of a hunger strike from jail. She said, "Because I cannot stand by in silence." I've shown data for years now of how different countries around the world show that technology is the match that sets the world's dry kindlings on fire, right? So move fast, break things. That's what Mark Zuckerberg said, and big tech broke democracy. It's going to get worse. Early this year, a few weeks ago, he announced that Facebook is giving up on facts. It's canceling what it created, fact-checking, that's trying to, it's like putting a finger in a dam that's about to fall on you. But, dear Mark, this isn't a free speech issue. This is an issue of safety. Imagine if this call had no safety measures and it was built of corroded materials and could fall on us at any time. How many more people will have to die? In 2018, the UN and Meta's own team independently went to Myanmar and found that Facebook enabled genocide. That was in 2018. Yet no one was held accountable. Online violence is real-world violence. This is something I've learned. I had to have close-in security. We increased security in Rappler, Little Rappler, 6 times in less than a few months. From Myanmar to Gaza to Ukraine to Sudan. Online violence feeds into real-world violence, and they all feed into each other. At Zimbabwe, Afghanistan, Ethiopia, the other forgotten battlegrounds around the world, these wars are fought not just with missiles and tanks, but with algorithms, disinformation, and the systematic destruction of truth and our communities of trust. Information warfare, geopolitical power play is exploiting these platforms' design. Remember, the goal is not to make you believe one thing. The goal is to make you doubt everything so you cannot act. Globally, 2 main fracture lines of society that is pounded open, regardless of country or culture. That's gender and race. And the attacks are often fueled by religion. Sexism that turns into misogyny, and racism that finds its way into constitutions like Hungary, where it's called white replacement theory. You hear it in the news as immigration or inflation, but if you dig deeper, you will see gender and race. A few years ago, we in Rappler decided that the empty promises of big tech, that we kind of had enough, and so we began building a public tech stack for the virtual world, where real people can have real conversations without being manipulated for power and money. We rolled out a Matrix protocol chat app a little more than a year ago. It is open source, secure, decentralized. It is used by countries that value data privacy. France, Germany, their websites are on the Matrix protocol. Our vision is a federation of news organizations all around the world. It is the only way we will survive this moment. My colleague Paterna Ismaquel will tell you more about it. I'm going to post a link for you to try it on X, Facebook, and Blue Sky. I'm sorry to send you there, but please come back to the Matrix afterwards. Because we are at the Vatican, I want to point out 3 things. First, technology rewards. rewards lies. Think about that. The first time I met Pope Francis, I said, Pope Francis, it's against the Ten Commandments. 2, the men who control this transformative technology wield godlike power, but they're far from God. They're only men whose arrogance, the lack of wisdom, and the lack of humility is taking the world down a dark path. Increasingly, by their own words and definitions, their unchecked and unaccountable power is resembling a cult. Which is why religion, faith, the Catholic Church, becomes more important today. In How to Stand Up to a Dictator, I write about how a simple idea, the golden rule, do unto others as we would have them do unto you, how that has guided me throughout my life. It helped define courage for me in a world that is increasingly shaped by lies. The courage to speak when silence is safer. The courage to build bridges when walls seem easier. And the courage to stand for truth, even when it feels like the entire world is against you. I like the South African word, Ubuntu. I am because we are. It's an antidote to many of our problems today. It's a universal truth that our faith communities embody. The pain of one is the pain of all. When big tech rewards the worst of who we are, Ubuntu teaches us that our fates are interconnected, that the fight for truth, justice, and peace is not someone else's battle, it is ours. Every single person in this hall. So what can you do? Thank you for waking up this morning. Now, I have 4 suggestions for you. 1, collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. Build and strengthen trust now to close the fracture lines of society that information operations will pound open, pitting one of us, each of us, against the other. 2, like Pope Francis, speak truth with moral clarity. Because silence in the face of injustice is complicity. Whether it's systemic racism, economic inequality, or the erosion of democratic norms, people of faith must reclaim, you must reclaim our prophetic voice. Demand transparency and accountability from those who control our public information ecosystems, from governments to big tech to media. 3, protect the most vulnerable. Support journalists, human rights defenders, and activists who risk their lives. Remember the Martin Niemöller quote from Germany? Here's our Philippine version, which was published by our largest newspaper after my first arrest. Here's the quote. First, they came for the journalists. We don't know what happened next. Your networks can be powerful shields for marginalized communities. Support immigrants, religious minorities, the LGBTQ+ and others who face discrimination. Our collective vigilance can prevent the normalization of hate. And 4, please, every one of us, recognize your power. Building peace is not reserved for heroes. It's the collective work of people who refuse to accept and live lies. Rappler could not have survived without the help of our community, always reminding me of the goodness of human nature. You are powerful and can be part of this tidal wave of change for the good. And that is powered by love. Sometimes that's hard to say as a journalist. So let me repeat them again. 4, collaborate, speak truth with moral clarity, protect the most vulnerable, and recognize your power. Even at the worst of times, hope is not passive. It is active, relentless, and strategic. Our faith traditions carry centuries of resilience. We need to share those stories of transformation. And finally, I'll leave you with this. There's this T.S. Eliot quote I love about the present moment of the past. This moment we live in. I always tell rappers, this moment, we want to do the right thing because a decade from now, when we look back, we want to say we did everything we could. T.S. Eliot, the present moment of the past. It's the idea that the latest novel you read is affected by the fact that you read Shakespeare when you were reading them, or the Bible. But that your understanding and appreciation of the Bible, of Shakespeare, will be affected by the latest novel that you read. In this present moment of our shared past, we have a choice. And it will create our future as much as change how we look at our past. We can allow the fractured lines of our society to break open, or we can work to heal these growing divides. Because this is it. This time matters. What you choose to do matters. There's so many of us in this room. Thank you for coming. Thank you to the Dicastery for bringing us together, to the Vatican, to the Pope. Imagine if we all worked together. We just might stem the tide, stop the dam from falling, and heal our world. Thank you.